So Trump was introduced, and it was a little bit awkward because he was standing at the lectern remote, but his image was on this giant screens. The guy head of the Davos introduced him. That finally, longer introduction than I think Trump was expecting from my looking at Trump's face. Trump then spoke. Then he took questions from a bunch of elites. Uh, uh, if I were to summarize Trump's performance, it was just one giant troll. Okay, the whole thing was trolling everybody, at home and abroad. So I want to show you some of it because it's compelling. First, number 7. This is just like 1 minute of overall trolling elites in Europe and the U.S.
Aid freeze, and I created the new Department of Government Efficiency. I terminated the ridiculous and incredibly wasteful Green New Deal. I call it the Green New Scam. Withdrew from the one-sided Paris Climate Accord and ended the insane and costly electric vehicle mandate. We're going to let people buy the car they want to buy. I declared a national energy emergency, and it's so important, national energy emergency to unlock the liquid gold under our feet and pave the way for rapid approvals of new energy infrastructure. The United States has the largest amount of oil and gas of any country on earth, and we're going to use it. Not only will this reduce the cost of virtually all goods and
get
services,
out of this one.
it'll make the United States a manufacturing.
I want to play another one, number 6. Cue that up, please. So he also, this is to me the sort of the money section where he's basically saying to private sector companies, come build your stuff, do your business in the U.S., or we're going to tariff you to ruin.
My message to every business in the world is very simple. Come make your product in America, and we will give you among the lowest taxes of any nation on earth. We're bringing them down very substantially, even from the original Trump tax cuts. But if you don't make your product in America, which is your prerogative, then very simply you will have to pay a tariff, differing amounts, but a tariff which will direct hundreds of billions of dollars and even trillions of dollars into our treasury to strengthen our economy and pay down debt.
All right. Lastly, I want to show you from Davos. One of the people who was there was Brian Moynihan, the longtime CEO, chair, I don't know which he is now, CEO or chair, the head of Bank of America. And one big issue, and you hear this from Trump people, it doesn't get covered very much, maybe for obvious reasons, is debanking. A lot of MAGA people, elites and rank and file folks have been debanked. They're just not allowed to bank at Bank of America. And it's very hard to operate as a business person or just as a person if you can't, have a connection to a bank. So here, listen to Donald Trump trolling Brian Moynihan, who's in the audience there in Davos.
By the way, speaking of you, and you've done a fantastic job, but I hope you start opening your bank to conservatives, because many conservatives complain that the banks are not allowing them to do business within the bank, and that included a place called Bank of America. They don't take conservative business. And I don't know if the regulators mandated that because of Biden or what, but you and Jamie and everybody, I hope you're going to open your banks to conservatives, because what you're doing is wrong.
By the way, before I ask you guys what you thought of that Trump performance, the other thing he mentioned, which people have written about, it's super important. During Trump's term, it'll be the 250th anniversary of the United States, the World Cup in the U.S., and the Olympics in the U.S. And he mentioned that, and he talked about that. And again, he loves cinematic narrative arcs in which he is the star. And those 3 things, he just couldn't be happier because they're bigly big. Matt, what do you think of the performance at Davos? What strikes you, stands out to you?
And if Governor Kamala Harris is in LA when the Olympics happen, so that's also number 2. But anyway, I thought it was great. It's funny, like the populist president going to Davos, but I will say this. You guys probably hear this too. I deal a lot with businesses, especially after November. C-suites are scared shitless of Trump. They really are. And more importantly, they have no idea how to talk to half the country. They're so used to, they adjusted because their workforce is still kind of from 2020, their DEI stuff. So what I noticed very quickly was immediately Bank of America had a graphic up that they tweeted out from their account. We don't, discriminate, blah, blah, blah. I can only imagine the panic conference call that the comms team, marketing team, legal, all got on immediately after Trump went. And I know the White House loves that. They love that power. Yeah.
Yeah.
And JP Morgan put out a very similar statement.
Yeah. People, the Journal and the New York Times have led the way in writing pieces about what you're talking about, Matt, and we've talked about it on these shows. But it's a massive story. They have billions of dollars at stake. They recognize now that their liberal employees and their liberal customers are going to have to take a back seat because for survival and market share, they're just going to have to switch. I mean, the cancellation of the DEI in the private sector before Trump did it is a massive story. And as Matt suggested, it's not being done on a whim. These are endless meetings with all the departments, legal, PR, investor relations, HR, like how can we get right with Trump? And it is going to be a 4-year story, certainly for the next year, especially. Mark, thoughts on the Davos, Florida man becoming Davos man?
I mean, I think what you said is accurate, that this is Trump's sort of troll in chief.
Yeah.
Trump is perhaps in the most powerful position, politically speaking, he's ever been.
Yeah.
This might be the zenith.
Yep.
We'll see.
Yeah. Dan.
Yeah, it was classic, Trump. He just was boasting about everything. Thought it was interesting that for the first time, it's only been 3 days, he took a shot at the Fed to start saying that he wants interest rates lower. It's been lost here this week, but inflation's remaining a little high. There's a story in lots of papers about the price of eggs, largely due to the bird flu. But unlike his first term, where he kind of wanted interest rates low and the economy was running and there was no inflation, it's a different dynamic now. And so it's kind of going to be worth watching whether he starts to get frustrated as the Fed tries to kind of keep that plane landing of inflation coming down without tanking the economy. But you could sense a little frustration. I will also just say, because I see in the chat, the attack on B of A, I believe, had to do with they withdrew from servicing companies that sold guns going back to his first term. And B of A has since loosened that a little. But that was the crux, because I was wondering, did they screw him like 20 years ago on a deal?
No. It's part of it, but I can tell you
Probably
there's tons of MAGA people who have been debanked, including by Bank of America. It's not just the guns.
Got it.
And Trump, and they talk to Trump about it all the time, and they talked about it over the last 4 years, and they talked about it in the transition, like what can we do? And so there he is, jawboning. Look, could Clinton, Bush, Obama, or Biden before his decline have done that? Gone there, treated them that way? Yeah, but they wouldn't have. I mean, it's not just a swagger. He knows a lot of them. He's a billionaire, right? So he's not uncomfortable. He's not as there are people at Davos richer than him, but if he went to Davos, he'd be amongst the richest. And it's just a different way of relating to them. He's not intimidated by them. And yet he respects them. He's in a different place now than he was before. As you guys have said, he's at the zenith of his power, and he feels it, and he knows what to say to him. And he's, again, just go back to authenticity, like that. That's not like phony. That's Trump.